The year is 1916. You open your eyes to the sound of thunder, but there's no storm, no lightning. It's just the shaking of the ground beneath you and the scream of distant shells falling from the sky. You are 20 years old. You were a farmer's son once. You knew the smell of cut grass, the warmth of sun on your face, the rhythm of slow, simple days. But now you're here, half buried in a narrow trench of dirt and rot, your boots soaked with cold mud that clings to your legs like wet cement. You're in France, and you're in hell. The trench stinks, not just of sweat and mold, but of death, rotting flesh, decay, the kind of smell that sticks to your clothes, your skin, your memory. You haven't taken off your boots in 3 days. Your socks are soaked through. Your feet sting and itch, but you're too afraid to look at them. Last week, the guy next to you lost 3 toes. Trench foot, they said. You press your body against the muddy wall, trying to disappear. You're shaking, not from cold, but from knowing that at any second, the whistle might blow. And when it does, you'll have to climb that ladder. You'll have to go over the top. And that's where most people die. You weren't always like this. When you signed up, the posters promised glory, adventure. You thought it would be over by Christmas, that you'd come home to cheers and parades. But Christmas came and went. Then another. Now it's August, and the war feels like it will never end. Your rifle is heavy. Your back hurts. There's lice in your shirt and rats the size of cats crawling near your head. They feast on the bodies left in no man's land. The gray, cratered stretch between your trench and theirs. The place where bullets fly, where men run and scream and fall and don't get back up. You've seen things no human should see, okay? A man holding his own jaw in his hands. Another crawling without legs, whispering for his mother as the mud swallows him. And the worst part, you can't scream. You can't cry, because if you do, you break. And if you break, you die. This is the story of why you wouldn't survive the trenches of World War I. Not because you're weak, because no one really survives it. Not fully. Not without losing something. A limb, a friend, a piece of your mind. Over the next hours, we'll walk through it all. The first time you see a man die. The night when mustard gas rolls in and burns your lungs. The screams in the dark. The days of endless shelling. The smell of corpses. The fear, the madness, the silence between attacks that's almost worse than the noise. This story isn't about glory, it's about survival, and how easily it slips away. You were assigned to the 3rd Battalion, British Expeditionary Force. You barely remembered the ship crossing the channel. Everyone was singing then, laughing, bragging, a group of boys pretending to be men. Now, most of those boys are gone. The first time the Germans shelled your trench, you pissed yourself. Everyone does. No one talks about it. You dropped flat on your belly, face in the mud, heart pounding like a drum inside your chest. The earth shook so hard, it felt like the world was splitting in half. You heard screaming, okay? And then, silence. Just like that. Corporal Hayes died that day. The blast threw him 10 feet into the air. When they found his body, he didn't have a head. They buried what was left behind the latrine. No ceremony, no goodbye, just dirt over blood. You don't sleep much. When you do, it's in short bursts, leaning against a wall or sitting on a crate. Rats nibble at your boots. Sometimes they crawl across your chest. One bit your ear while you slept once. You woke up screaming. No one even looked. Everyone screams, sometimes. The food is awful. They call it bully beef. Canned meat that tastes like salt and sadness. Sometimes hard biscuits. If you're lucky, you get tea. Once, they brought chocolate. That was 6 months ago. No one remembers what sugar tastes like anymore. Your hands are always dirty. Your nails are black. It's a smell that never goes away. A mix of blood, gunpowder, wet socks, and fear. You can't remember what clean feels like. There's a letter in your pocket from your sister. It's smudged, and crumpled. You've read it 20 times. She wrote about the apple trees blooming back home. You tried to imagine them, but all you see are broken branches and mud. And then, one morning, it happens. The whistle blows. Your stomach drops. Your hands shake. Heart hammers. You glance at your sergeant. He doesn't speak, just nods. Slowly, you climb the ladder. You rise into the light. The world explodes. Your fingers curl around the edge of the trench. The wood of the ladder is damp and slick with mud. You're not even fully sure what's on the other side, but your body moves. Not because you're brave. No, nothing about this is bravery. It's fear. Pure, screaming, breathless fear that drives you up. Because if you don't go, someone behind you will push you. Kate, if you don't move, you'll be court-martialed, labeled a coward, shot. So you climb. Your boots leave the safety of the trench floor. One foot, then the next. Your heart is pounding in your ears, so loud you can't even hear the machine guns yet. You reach the top and rise, crouched low. Ahead of you is no man's land, a sea of mud, barbed wire, broken trees, and dead bodies. It stretches for hundreds of yards, pockmarked by craters and stained with blood. The sky is gray. The earth is worse, and then the gunfire starts. Bullets rip the air. You can't see where they're coming from, but you hear them. A strange buzzing sound, like angry insects. One whistles past your ear, so close you feel the heat. Another strikes the ground beside you and kicks up wet soil. You run, half crawling, half stumbling, your rifle heavy in your arms. Round you, men are falling. One screams. Another just crumples silently and doesn't move again. You hear your name. Private Williams, the boy from Yorkshire, with freckles and too many teeth, is screaming. His leg is gone. Just gone. Blown clean off. His blood sprays out in short bursts, hot and bright, like a fountain. He clutches at you, but you keep moving. Can't stop. If you stop, you'll die. You tell yourself you'll come back for him, but deep down, you know you won't. You fall into a shell hole and lie flat, chest heaving, eyes wide. Round you, the world is chaos. Smoke, screams, shouts, explosions. Somewhere nearby, someone is praying loudly, repeating the same words again and again, like a broken record. Your hands are shaking. Your mouth is dry. You try to reload your rifle, but your fingers don't work properly. You drop the bullet. You curse. You try again. Suddenly, a shadow moves nearby. It's not a German. It's Corporal Allen, his face pale, one hand pressed tightly to his stomach. His fingers are red, soaked. He's trying to hold himself together, quite literally. His guts are spilling out like thick, wet ropes. He looks at you. I don't want to die, he says, but he does. 10 seconds later, his head falls to the side, and he stops moving. You're still gripping your rifle, but you're not even sure if you fired a single shot. Hours pass. The world becomes noise. You lose track of time. Your brain begins to detach from your body, like it's trying to protect you from everything it's seeing. You stumble from crater to crater, firing when others fire, ducking when they duck. Someone throws a grenade. You hear the pop of gas shells in the distance, but not near you. Not yet. At one point, you step on something soft. You look down. It's a face. Eyes wide open. Mouth frozen in a scream. Half buried in the mud. You vomit and keep moving. At dusk, what's left of your unit staggers back toward the trench. There are fewer of you now. Maybe a third, maybe less. It's hard to tell. Some are missing limbs. Others walk like ghosts. One man is laughing, full-on laughing, like he's just heard a joke. Okay, but there's blood dripping from his ears. You slide back into the trench and collapse. You're shaking. Your hands are raw. Your boots are soaked through with blood that's not yours. You look around and realize something horrifying. You don't even know what the mission was. What you were running toward. Was there an enemy machine gun nest? A trench to capture? No one knows, and no one cares. You survived, for now. That night, you lie in the mud, too tired to sleep. You stare up at the sky. The stars are faint. The air is cold. Rat runs across your chest, but you don't even flinch. You're too numb. Your ears are still ringing from the blasts. And then you remember Williams, his leg, his screams. You wonder if he's still out there, bleeding, crying for someone to help, or if the rats found him first. You bury your face in your arms and try not to think, but you do. You can't stop. You see Alan's insides. You hear bones cracking. You feel the crunch beneath your boot. And you realize you've changed. You're not the same boy who arrived. Something inside you broke today. You're not sure it will ever heal. The next morning, it rains. Not heavy, just a slow, cold drizzle that seeps into everything. Your shirt sticks to your back. Your fingers are pruned from moisture. The trench is flooding again. Water rises over your ankles. Go. You shift to a higher spot, but everyone else has the same idea. There's no space. Go. And then, as if things weren't bad enough, the gas siren goes off. You've never moved so fast in your life. You reach for your gas mask, the one thing that might save you. It's hanging from your neck in a metal canister. You rip it open, pull the rubber over your face, and adjust the straps, just in time. A greenish cloud is rolling toward the trench, slow but deadly. Chlorine gas. You've heard the stories, what it does to your lungs, how it turns the inside of your throat to fire, how it melts your eyes. You clutch your mask, praying there are no holes, that the seal is tight, that your luck holds one more time. Some aren't so lucky. It's a boy near you. You don't know his name. Fumbles his mask. His hands are shaking. He drops it. The gas reaches him before he can try again. Then seconds, he's on the ground, coughing. No, not coughing, screaming. His face turns red, then purple, then a sickening blue. Foam spills from his mouth. His body jerks once. Then he goes still. He could smell the gas even through the mask. It burns your eyes, makes them water. Your throat aches. You want to cough, but you hold it in. You don't want to open your mouth, not even for a second. You sit there, knees drawn to your chest, hugging your rifle like a lifeline, watching the death cloud roll through. It feels like it lasts forever. When it finally clears, the air is thick with silence and bodies. You survived that day too, but now you flinch at everything. A bird overhead. You duck. A shout from a fellow soldier. You grip your rifle tight. The whistle for breakfast. You almost cry. You haven't slept in days. Your skin itches from lice. Your feet are starting to swell and turn black. But the worst part isn't the mud, or the cold, or the hunger. It's the fear. It's the never-ending, choking fear that you're going to die horribly. It's that maybe you'll see it coming, or maybe you won't. Maybe it'll be a bullet to the back, or a shell landing too close, or a cloud of gas while you sleep. Or maybe, worst of all, it'll be when you're too tired to care. There's something you feel now that wasn't there before. Something deep. It doesn't scream. It doesn't shout. It just hums quietly, low in your chest. A feeling that something is slipping out of place. You sit in the trench, knees drawn to your chest, your back pressed against the damp wall. The sky is gray, always gray, the same color as the faces around you. You listen to the distant shelling, the sharp cracks of rifle fire echoing across the lines like drums in a far-off jungle. You've started to feel like a different person, not just tired, but wrong, like your bones no longer fit your skin, like your brain is no longer entirely yours. This is how it starts. They call it shell shock, but that name doesn't describe the truth. Not really, because it's not just fear, it's not just nerves, it's your entire self unraveling, piece by piece, until there's nothing left. It begins with small things. You jump at every sound, even the small ones. A dropped fork, a loud laugh, a sneeze. Then you stop laughing at all. Then you stop speaking. Then you stop sleeping. There's a man named Oliver in your unit. You used to talk to him. He was a barber before the war, told funny stories, had a picture of his wife sewn into the inside of his jacket to keep her close, he said. Now, Oliver sits with his head between his knees all day. He doesn't blink, doesn't eat unless someone puts food in his hand. One night, he stood up mid-shelling and just walked out into no man's land, calmly, like he was going to the store. They found him in pieces. No one even screamed. You're not sure what day it is anymore, or what time. The trench is always the same, wet, cold, filled with flies. You haven't changed clothes in over a week. Your socks are stiff. Your hands have small cuts that never heal. Your gums are bleeding. Sometimes you feel dizzy when you stand up. You reach so tired it feels like you re-drunk, but there's no warmth. It's only the fog of exhaustion and the noise. The noise never stops. Even in silence, you hear the guns, like they're inside your head. The low thump of distant artillery, teached screech of shells flying overhead. The soft pop of gas canisters hitting the dirt, even when they're not there. Especially then. One night, you wake up screaming. You dreamed you were drowning in mud. Your hands were tied. The mud filled your mouth, your lungs, your eyes. You woke up gasping. No one comforts you. No one even looks. They've all had that dream, too. Your commanding officer starts to change as well. Lieutenant Harrow, clean-shaven, upright, sharp-eyed when you first met him, now speaks in a whisper. His hands tremble when he gives orders. His right eyelid twitches constantly, like it's trying to send a message in Morse code. He carries a flask with him now. It used to be for special occasions. Now, it's all the time. You hear rumors of men breaking entirely, being sent home, but only after they lose everything. There was one man in another company who clawed his own face open with his fingernails during a gas attack. Said he wanted to let the fear out. They say he got shipped back to England to a hospital. A real one, with beds and nurses and clean sheets. You envy him. Then comes the day when the shelling doesn't stop. Not for an hour, not for 2, not even for 10. It goes on and on and on, shaking the trench, pounding the air, turning the sky orange. You can't hear anything else. You can't think. You can't breathe. The ground shakes so hard, you bite your tongue. You curl into a ball, arms over your head, and sob like a child. So do the others. Big, strong men. Boys who used to laugh. Now they cry in the mud, whispering prayers in languages you don't understand. That night, something inside you breaks. Not with a bang, but with a silence. You stare at your hands for a long time. They don't feel like your hands anymore. Your body moves, but you don't feel in control. You reload your rifle without remembering how. You eat without tasting. You speak, but the words don't sound like yours. You're still alive, but not really. It's not the part that matters. The next morning, you wake to a new kind of horror. There's a body beside you, but it's not just dead. It's crawling with maggots. You gag. You scramble away. You vomit bile into the mud. You wipe your mouth on your sleeve. No one helps. No one moves the body. There's nowhere else to put it, so it stays, rotting, beside you. For 2 more days, you stop looking people in the eye. That's when you do. You see yourself. The blankness, the fear, the hopelessness. A few soldiers try to joke, try to talk about what they'll do when it's all over, but their voices are hollow. The smiles are forced. The laughter dies quickly. They know, like you do, that it's not ending. Not for you, not for them. The worst part, you hear new recruits arriving. Young, clean, smiling, still smelling of soap and home. You hate them, not because they did anything wrong, but because they still believe. You don't. Not anymore. Then one evening, the orders come again. There's going to be another push. You feel the air leave your lungs. Another climb over the top. Another run into the meat grinder. You want to scream, to beg, to cry, but you don't. You nod. You clean your rifle. You tie your boots tighter. You write a letter to your mother, even though you know you won't be able to send it. And when the sun rises the next morning, you climb the ladder again. The sky is pink, but not in a beautiful way. It's the kind of sky that feels wrong, too soft for what's about to happen. A delicate sheet of light draped over a nightmare. You're standing in the trench, staring up at it, boots deep in mud, shoulders stiff, stomach heavy with dread. The whistle hasn't blown yet, but it will. You're not afraid of dying anymore. That part of you is gone, burned out, hollowed. It's not bravery, not heroism, just numbness. It's the kind that creeps in so slowly, notice, until one day you wake up and realize that if a bullet struck your heart right now, you'd feel relief. That's where you are. That's where so many of you are. You glance at the boy next to you. New recruit, looks maybe 17, eyes too big for his head, knuckles white around his rifle. He turns to you. Will it hurt? You don't answer, 'cause yes, it will. It always does. The bullet is kind, it ends everything in a blink. But if it's not, if it hits your belly, or spine, or face, it'll be screaming and burning and choking in your own blood, alone in the mud, staring at the sky that looks too soft for a moment like this. So you don't lie to him. But you don't tell the truth, either. You just say nothing. Then the whistle comes. A long, high-pitched sound that splits the morning apart like a knife. The others begin to climb, one by one. So you go too, because that's what you do. Not because you think you'll win, not because you believe in the mission, but because if you don't, you'll be shot in the back by your own men. That's how far it's gone. That's what survival means now. You rise into the open air. The world explodes. Bullets crack past your head, slicing the wind, stitching the space between life and death. A man falls beside you, hit before he even took a full step. Another drops his rifle and clutches his throat, blood bubbling through his fingers like red foam. Okay, you run. You run harder than you've ever run, over broken ground, slipping in mud, leaping over bodies. You're not thinking, you're not aiming, you're not screaming, you're just moving, like an animal. It's pure survival. There's a crater ahead, wide, deep, fresh. You dive into it, roll, slam into the side. Your ribs burn. You can't tell if you're hurt or just winded. You check your hands, still there. Rifle's gone, doesn't matter. Then you see him, the boy from before. The one who asked you if it would hurt. He's in the crater too, but he's not moving. His helmet is gone. His face is pale. There's a red stain spreading across his chest, dark and wide and final. He didn't even last 10 minutes. You stay in that crater for hours, too afraid to move, too tired to care. Shells fall, machine guns spit. The world tears itself apart above your head. And through it all, the boy lies there, still, mouth slightly open, eyes empty. He died asking a question, and you didn't answer it. By nightfall, the push has failed. Another failure. Another few hundred men dead for a few feet of dirt. You stagger back toward the line, crawling, limping, carrying a wound in your leg that you don't even remember getting. It's shallow, but bleeding. The pain hasn't fully arrived yet, just a dull throb. Your body's reminding you that you're still here, still alive. Unfortunately, back in the trench, there's no celebration, no fire, no warmth, just silence, grunts, bandages, cries in the dark. A man rocks back and forth near the wall, muttering the Lord's Prayer under his breath. Someone else is trying to dig a grave with a spoon. The ground's too hard. The medic is overwhelmed. He walks past you, doesn't even see you. His hands are shaking. His eyes are bloodshot. You sit down and you don't get up. You stay there for a long time. Long enough for the leg to scab over. It's long enough for the dead to be hauled off. It's long enough for the boy's face to begin to blur in your memory, replaced by 100 others. That's what happens, right? Faces vanish, voices fade. Names get buried deeper than the bodies. But the sounds, they screams. The wet gurgling sound a man makes when he's dying. The pop of a gas shell. It's the crunch of a boot on a frozen corpse. Those don't leave. Those are forever. One morning, you're told to take a letter to the mail sack. It's the first time you've been asked to do anything beyond loading, firing, surviving. You walk to the rear trench slowly, limping, head down. On your way, you pass a group of fresh men. More recruits, clean uniforms, eyes wide, voices full of excitement. One of them asks where the front line is. You don't answer. You just keep walking. They don't understand yet, but they will. Give it a day. Give it an hour. You reach the mail station. It smells like tobacco and old paper. Someone's cooking something in a tin. Maybe beans, maybe meat. You can't tell. Don't ask. You drop the letter into the sack. On your way out, a chaplain stops you. "You all right, son?" he asks. You stare at him. Then slowly, you nod. He places a hand on your shoulder. "You'll be home soon." But you know that's a lie, even if you live. You're not going home. Not really, because the you that left, he's already dead. Time becomes a blur. Not the quick blur of movement, but the slow, dragging kind. Like your brain is underwater and everything moves just a little too slowly, just a little too heavily. The days melt into each other and the hours crawl like wounded rats through the mud. Nothing happens, and that's the worst part. You've survived the charges. You've survived the shelling. You've survived the gas. But now comes the real killer, the waiting. They don't tell you that the war isn't just explosions and blood. It's boredom, soul-crushing, mind-warping boredom. It stretches between your bones and fills every inch of your thoughts until you want to scream. Not from fear, but from the emptiness. You sit in a trench with nothing to do. You've cleaned your rifle 5 times. You've tied and retied your boots. You've stared at the same patch of wood on the trench wall for over an hour. There's nothing else. The war is quiet now. It's not over. Just paused, like someone took the chaos and pressed the mute button. But it won't last. It never does. You know this. Everyone knows this, okay? So you wait, and wait, and wait. Meals are smaller than ever. A few bites of stale bread. Maybe a spoon of something warm if you're lucky. Once a week, they give you something that's supposed to be meat. You don't ask what kind. You just chew and swallow and pray your stomach doesn't reject it. Water is rationed. It's clean water, even more so. You've started to drink the rain sometimes, 'cause at least it's cold. There's a man in your unit who hums all day long. Just one song, over and over. A slow, tuneless little hum. At first, it was comforting. A reminder of home, maybe. But now, it's maddening. Every time he starts again, it drills into your brain like a worm. No one tells him to stop, because no one has the strength. And maybe that's all he has left to hold on to. You get a letter from home, from your sister. She says the crops are good this year, that the apples are sweeter than ever, that she saw a boy you used to know from school. He works at the mill now, has 2 kids, got married last winter. You read the letter 5 times, and then you burn it, because it hurts more to remember. The lice are worse now. They live in your clothes, in your hair, in the seams of your socks. You scratch until your skin bleeds. Then the cuts get infected. Then you scratch again. It's a cycle you can't break. You smell like a rotting dog. You can't remember the last time you were dry. You stopped trying to clean yourself weeks ago. It's the point. You're not a person anymore. You're a thing. It's a piece of meat waiting for the butcher's knife. They bring a new sergeant to replace the last one. No one talks about the last one anymore. He's just gone. It's like so many others. The new guy is older, gray in his beard, one eye half closed from an old wound. He doesn't shout. He doesn't even raise his voice, but when he speaks, everyone listens. You don't have to be brave. He tells you once, crouched beside the latrine, lighting a cigarette. You just have to keep breathing. He gives you the cigarette without asking if you smoke. You take it. You don't smoke. You just hold it between your fingers until it burns down to ash. At night, the trench sounds change. There's a rhythm to the dark now. A cough, a rat scurrying, a distant gunshot, someone crying quietly. You lie awake with your eyes open because you've learned the truth. Sleep is dangerous. You never know what you'll wake up to, or if you wake up at all. Sometimes you imagine deserting, just slipping away into the dark, running until your legs give out, finding some quiet field and laying down in the grass and letting the wind carry you away. But you know that's a dream, because if the war doesn't catch you, your own men will, and bullets are bullets, so no matter who fires them. You begin to forget your name. It's not fully, it's still there, somewhere, but it feels like someone else's name now. Someone who smiled once, who ran barefoot in the summer, who kissed a girl behind the church when he was 16. That boy is dead. You buried him in no man's land weeks ago. Now, there's only you, in the trench, in the cold. A week passes, maybe more. There's no calendar, no clock. Only the sun when it decides to show itself, and the moon when the clouds allow. One morning, a shell lands nearby, close, but not close enough to kill. The blast knocks you off your feet. Your ears ring for hours. You walk with a limp for days, but you're still breathing, still here, for now. It's a dog that appears at the edge of the trench one evening. Small thing, dirty and limping, ribs showing. Someone throws it a bit of biscuit. It eats like it hasn't tasted food in years. Then it curls up under a plank and sleeps. For a moment, you all stare at it like it's some holy thing. It's a miracle. It's a living creature that doesn't kill or scream or die in pieces. A reminder that the world still exists beyond this. You almost cry, but your eyes are too dry. Then one night, without warning, the shelling starts again, louder than before, closer. You dive for cover, hands over your head, heart hammering. The trench shakes. A wall collapses. Someone screams, high and sharp, like a rabbit caught in a snare. The sky lights up in flashes of orange and white. Mud rains down. The dog is gone. You don't know if it ran or if it's buried. You never see it again. You don't sleep for the next 3 days. Your hands shake constantly. You forget words when you speak. You start hearing voices that aren't there. Your name, your mother's voice, it's the crackle of a fire that doesn't exist. And yet, you're still standing, still breathing, still waiting for death, for orders, for silence. You're not even sure which one you want more. The order comes down before dawn. You barely hear it at first. It floats through the trench like fog. Quiet, slow, heavy. Another offensive. Another march through hell. This one's different. They say larger, more coordinated, more artillery, more air cover, more everything. They say this might be the one that breaks the enemy line. They say it with straight faces, but no one believes it. You don't, because you've heard it before, and you've seen what breaking the line really means. It means bodies stacked like firewood. It means blood in your mouth. It means watching your friends fall and knowing you can't stop for them. It means dying in the same patch of dirt. 100 others died on last week. You polish a rifle anyway, out of habit, not hope. Your fingers still work. That's something. Cue boots are still holding together, though barely. You've rewrapped your feet with torn cloth. Anything to fight the trench rot creeping up your toes. You slide your bayonet into place. It clicks in with a sound that feels far too loud for the early hour. Around you, no one talks. There's nothing left to say. The new lieutenant walks by, checking positions. He's young, pale, eyes like glass. You don't know his name, You don't want to. It won't last long. No new officer does. Just before sunrise, the priest walks the line. He doesn't preach anymore. Not really. He just offers a glance, a hand on the shoulder, a whisper of something gentle, barely a prayer. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes not. He stops in front of you. You nod. So does he. No words. You've forgotten how to use them. Then the whistle blows. You move like a machine now. No hesitation, no panic, no soul. You climb the ladder. The sky is still dark, but lighter at the edges. The dawn is trying to break, like a scream stuck in the throat. You run. Mud pulls at your boots like hands from below. Barbed wire tangles your feet. Explosions rain down like gods gone mad. Your comrades scream beside you, behind you, ahead of you. Someone is on fire. Someone is missing half a face. Someone is dragging their own intestines behind them like a scarf. You do not stop. You do not feel. You move. You reach a crater and fall in. Your knees hit stone. Your chest slams the earth. You lie there, panting, throat raw, heart beating so fast you'd think it might stop altogether. Above, tracers light the sky. You hear the gunfire snap the air. You hear men crying for their mothers. You hear the silence between screams. You sit up. You reload. Keep going. The line is chaos. What was supposed to be a coordinated advance is now a massacre. You push forward anyway. You climb out of the crater and charge again. K. There's a machine gun nest ahead. Hidden. Waiting. You know it's there. You go anyway. You reach it. You kill the man behind the gun. You stab him. Twice. 3 times. More than necessary. You don't stop until your arm aches. Okay. You look down and realize you're covered in his blood. You drop your rifle. You scream. But the war is too loud to hear it. When it's over, when the shells stop falling and the sky is finally clear, you're alone. You stand in the middle of no man's land. Mud to your knees. Rifle gone. Coat torn. Hands shaking. You walk back to your lines on legs that feel like twigs. You don't remember how long it takes. An hour. A day. Time has stopped meaning anything. Okay. When you reach the trench again, there are no cheers, no welcome. No one says your name. Just move aside. You climb down. You sit in the corner. And you stay there. Someone brings you water. You don't drink it. Someone offers food. You don't eat it. You just sit, staring at nothing, seeing everything, seeing him. The man you stabbed, the look in his eyes, the blood on your hands. Your hands, your hands. You vomit. Again and again, till nothing comes out. You cry. No one notices. Everyone is crying. Some just do it quieter. The next day, they try to move you. They tell you it's time for roll call. You don't respond. You just sit. The medic comes. He waves a hand in front of your face. You blink. Barely. He speaks to someone else. You don't catch all the words. Shell shock. Too far gone. Remove him from the line. Want to laugh? You want to tell him you were gone months ago. But you don't. You just let them carry you out. They lay you in a stretcher. They take you to a dugout. Dark, quiet, far from the front. You lie there for hours, then days, then more. Your body heals. Your mind does not. They send you to a hospital behind the lines, with white walls and silent nurses and strange smells. You're clean now, fed, safe, but you still hear the guns, still see the eyes, still wake up screaming. They give you medicine. Okay. They whisper kind words, but it doesn't matter, 'cause part of you is still out there, in the trench, in the mud, with the boy who didn't make it, with the man you killed, with the version of you who still believed you'd survive. And one day, you stop speaking. You just stare out the window. The war is still going. They say it will end soon. But you don't care, because it already ended for you. Long ago, one morning, you wake to silence. Not the temporary silence that comes after shelling. Not the hush before a charge or the pause after a scream. Real silence. No guns, no whistles, no boots stomping in the mud. No cries for help or groans from the dying. It's just stillness. You think, at first, that you've died? That maybe it finally happened in your sleep. And this quiet is what comes after. But then a nurse enters the room and opens the window, and it flows sunlight and birdsong and something else, something strange. Laughter. You're not the only one who hears it. Down the hall, someone shouts. Another cries. Somewhere, someone starts to sing. A doctor rushes in, beaming, holding a newspaper with smudged ink in trembling hands. It's over, he says. The war is over. And just like that, the war that ate the world, the war that consumed millions, the war that shattered you is finished. You don't react. Not at first. How could you? It doesn't make sense. The idea that something so big, so all-consuming, could just end, that the guns would simply stop, teat, that the gas would no longer hiss, that men would no longer die screaming in the mud, feels like a joke, like a cruel trick, but it isn't. The war really is over, and now you are expected to go home. You're given new clothes, a uniform, clean and pressed. You don't recognize yourself in it. They comb your hair, shave your face, hand you a duffel bag with your real name stitched on it. Your knees give out. You break down, sobbing at the sound of thunder. You forget where you are sometimes. You call out two names no one else remembers. You don't speak of the war, but it hangs in every room like smoke. Everyone sees it. No one knows what to do with it. One day, you see a man in the village square wearing a shiny uniform. He's part of the welcome committee. Team never fought. He stayed back, ran papers, drank coffee, wore medals on his chest. He sees you and salutes, says something about courage, about honor, about patriotism. You stare at him. Then you walk away, 'cause there's nothing to say, because he'll never understand, 'cause he never saw what you saw, never felt what you felt, and never lost what you lost. The days drag on. People begin to move on, to plant crops, build barns, marry, laugh, drink, dance. They remember the war like it was a bad dream. It's like it ended neatly, cleanly, wrapped in a bow. You envy them, but you also hate them, just a little, because you can't forget. 'Cause the war isn't in the past for you. It's behind your eyes, in your skin, in your blood. Always waiting, always watching. You start to write, not to be read, just to empty yourself. You write names, so many names. Men who died screaming, men who died silently, men who should still be here. You write about the gas, the rats, the charges. K. You write until your hands cramp. Cain, until the candle burns out, until you forget your writing. And still, the war lives inside you. Every breath, every step. Every time you close your eyes, you realize the truth. You didn't survive the trenches. Not really. You hold it in your hands and try to remember that name. Try to remember the man who once owned it, but he's gone. He died in the trench. He's still lying in that shell crater, still clutching a letter that was never sent, still staring at the sky. The journey home is slow. You board a train with other men, some bandaged, some limping, some staring blankly like you. You pass towns you once knew, rivers you used to fish in, woods where you played as a child. But they look different now, smaller, quieter, unreal, like places from someone else's memory, not yours, not anymore. When you arrive in your village, a small crowd is waiting. Children wave flags, mothers weep. A brass band plays a song that's far too cheerful for the weight in your chest. People smile at you, shake your hand, say thank you, call you a hero. You don't feel like one. You don't feel anything. Your house is smaller than you remembered. Your mother has aged. Your sister hugs you and cries. Your dog barks then licks your hand. You stand there in the doorway, clutching your bag, and realize you don't know how to enter. Not just the house, but this life. This new, strange, ordinary life that has no trench, no rifle, no mud, no screaming. Just walls and furniture and clocks ticking on clean white shelves. You're not ready. You may never be. The nights are the worst. You lie in a bed that is too soft, too warm, too quiet. You stare at the ceiling. Your body twitches at every sound. You see shadows in the corner. You hear rats that aren't there. You wake up gasping for air, convinced you're choking on gas, clawing at your throat, screaming for a mask. Cue. Your family rushes in, tries to calm you, but they don't understand. Key. The war is over for them, but not for you. For you, it never stopped. It just moved inside. You tried to work, tried to help in the fields, tried to repair the roof, tried to chop wood, tried to smile, but your hands shake because you left too much of yourself behind, too much of your soul, too much of your hope. What came back was only the shell. You survive. That's what they all say, that you made it. They say it like it's something to be proud of, like it's a badge, like it's proof of strength. But survival isn't clean. It isn't a medal. It isn't something you show off. Survival is messy. Survival is waking up every morning wishing you hadn't, seeing someone smile and feeling nothing. It's dragging yourself through days that never seem to end. It's hearing birdsong and flinching. It's surviving a war that no one else can still hear. Because for you, it's not over, not even close. You spend hours sitting by the river near your home. What was your favorite place once? Before, you used to fish there with your father. You used to skip stones and laugh. Now, you just sit, stare at the water. Not because it's peaceful, but because the movement reminds you of the mud. Because sometimes, when the light hits just right, you can almost believe you're back there in the trench, where things made sense, even in their horror. People talk to you, but their words slide off your mind like water off oil. They ask if you're feeling better. They ask what it was like. They ask what you plan to do next. You nod. You smile when you remember how. You say, "I'm fine," more times than you can count. But inside, you're not even sure you're still a person. You feel more like an echo, something that sounds human from far away, but up close, it's just the wind. You try to rejoin life. You help in the market. You walk to church. You eat with your family. But every sound is too loud. Every face feels unfamiliar. Every moment is tinged with something you can't explain. Like the world is happening around you, but not to you. Like you're watching it from the outside, behind glass that never breaks. Then, one day, a loud bang startles you. It's the dropped barrel, a simple accident, but it sends you to your knees. You scream before you even know why. Your hands cover your head. Your eyes clamp shut. You wait for the explosion, for the gas, for the charge, but it doesn't come. Instead, silence, then soft voices, then hands helping you up. You don't remember how you got home, only that you cried in your mother's lap like a child, and she didn't say a word, because she didn't need to, because maybe, finally, she understands. You came back alive, but the boy she raised never did. The other veterans understand. They're the only ones who do. You meet sometimes, in a field, in a barn, behind the chapel. No one talks much. Some smoke, some drink, some stare at the dirt. There's no need for stories. You all lived the same one, and it's still happening inside each of you. One man tries to take his own life. He doesn't succeed, but no one judges him, because you've all thought about it. Some still do, not because you want to die, okay, but because you're too tired to keep pretending to live, because your body came home, okay, but your soul is still buried beneath a trench wall in Belgium. You visit the grave of a friend, one of the few whose body was recovered, whose name was written in stone. You kneeled there for a long time. You traced the letters of his name with your fingertips. You whispered things you never said when he was alive. You tell him you're sorry. You tell him you miss him. You tell him you wish it had been you. And then, when you can't hold it anymore, you let the tears fall. Not for him, but for yourself, for what you became, for what you lost, for the man who never truly leave the trench. Years pass, the world changes, but you don't. Not really. People stop calling you a hero. They forget your rank, your regiment, your battles. The parades grow smaller, the speech is quieter. History moves on, but you stay behind, still carrying the weight, still fighting the war inside your skull, still wondering why you were spared when so many weren't. You live, not perfectly, not even well, but you breathe. You walk, you speak when needed, you help where you can. Sometimes you even laugh, not often, but enough to keep going. And maybe that's what survival really means. Not medals, not glory, not victory, but choosing to get up each day, even when it hurts, even when the ghosts are louder than the world, even when every part of you wants to stay curled in the dark. You rise, you stand, you keep moving, one step at a time. Because the war never truly ends. Not for you. But neither does life. And for now, that's enough. They called it the war to end all wars. But for the men who fought it, the war never ended. Not in their minds, not in their bodies, not in their hearts, and not in the quiet corners of the world where they tried to hide the things they had seen. They came back, changed shadows of the boys who left, their laughter dulled, their eyes heavy, their silence loud, and for a time, people welcomed them, honored them, wept with them. But slowly, that changed. The world forgot. You watch it happen. You see the posters come down, the flags folded, the medals locked in drawers. You see the war fade from headlines to footnotes, from memory to myth. You walk down streets that once erupted in cheers when you returned, only to now pass by unnoticed, just another face in the crowd. People talk about recovery, about rebuilding, about moving forward, but you're still standing still, 'cause they moved on, and you didn't. You try to blend in, smile when someone speaks of peace, to nod when someone says it was worth it, to stay quiet when someone younger calls it glorious. But inside you, the trenches are still there, still damp, still dark, still waiting. You sit in the church pew and remember the boy who died praying in a gas mask. You walk past the field and remember the charge that ended with bodies stacked like broken dolls. You hear children laugh and think of the men who cried for their mothers as they bled out in the dirt. It never leaves you. Others understand. Other soldiers, other ghosts in uniform. You meet in quiet places, no flags, just tired eyes and calloused hands, and silence shared like bread. You nod, you sit, you remember. And in that remembering, there's a strange kind of comfort. Not healing, never healing, but knowing. And sometimes that's enough. The government promised you a future. They said there would be land, jobs, help, but when you go to claim it, there's nothing waiting. The land is taken. The jobs are filled. The help is delayed, or denied, or forgotten in some file drawer gathering dust. You're not a soldier anymore. You're a burden, okay? A problem, too loud to be ignored, and too broken to be celebrated. You take work where you can. Digging, hauling, washing floors, shoveling coal. You don't complain, 'cause it means you're useful, 'cause it gives your hands something to do when your mind won't rest. But no matter how much you sweat, you still see their faces, still hear their screams, still feel the mud under your nails when you lie in bed at night. Some don't make it. Some stop showing up. Some walk into rivers. Some hang themselves in barns. Some drink themselves into silence. You hear the whispers. Shell shock, they say. War nerves. Couldn't handle it. But no one says the truth out loud. That you can survive the war and still die from it years later. One day, you pass a boy reading about the war in a book. He looks up at you, eyes wide. Were you there? He asks. You nod. He smiles. Was it exciting? You look at him, and for a moment, you want to tell him everything. The mud, the screams, the gas, the fire, the smell of death so thick you couldn't breathe without tasting it. But you don't. You just nod again, because he's a child. Because there's still a world where he can smile like that. And because maybe not knowing is a kind of mercy. Years pass. The war becomes a chapter in a textbook. A faded photograph in a museum. A ceremony on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. People wear poppies. They recite poems. They bow their heads. Okay. And then they go home. 2 warm beds. 2 soft pillows. 2 laughter and peace and forgetting. But you sit in your chair by the window. You sip weak tea with trembling hands. You stare at a world that no longer remembers what it cost to build itself. And you carry the memories they left behind, because someone has to. Because someone always has to. You are the forgotten generation. Not because people stopped talking about the war, but because they never really understood it to begin with. They saw your medals, but not your nightmares. They saw your silence, days, but not your scars. They saw the man who came home, but not the pieces of you still buried overseas. And as your hair grays and your steps slow, you realize something. You didn't survive to be remembered. You survived because someone had to tell the truth, to carry the weight, to stand where so many fell, even if the world forgets your name, even if your story is never told, even if the trench claims your heart long after it spared your body. You lived, you endured, you bore witness, and in that there is something sacred. Silence is not peace. It is not calm. It is not relief. It is not the absence of pain. Silence is just what's left when the noise ends. And if you've lived long enough, you come to understand that silence, too, can scream. The years slide past you like mist, soft, uneventful, uneven. At first, you count them, you mark anniversaries. This was the day he died. That was the day we charged. This was the last time I saw him. That was the day we buried nothing, because there was nothing left to bury. But eventually, the calendar means less and less. Your body ages, your back bends, your hands shake, your hearing fades, but your memories never do. They sharpen. They settle deeper. They grow heavier, not lighter, with time. The world outside moves faster now. Cars, radios, television, newspapers filled with conflicts in places you've never been, carried out by boys who will come home with the same blank stare you once wore. You watch them on the screen. You see yourself in their eyes, and you wonder, have we learned nothing? They build a monument in your town, a tall stone pillar etched with names. Your name is there, so is his, and theirs. You visit sometimes. It's not out of pride, but duty, okay? You run your hand across the names, whispering them under your breath, like a prayer no one taught you. The school children march by on holidays. Their teacher reads a poem. The children listen politely. Hey. Then they run back to their games, okay? And you remain behind, holding your hat to your chest, feeling the weight of it all pressed down like the earth itself. You live in a small cottage now, not far from the edge of the village. Your days are slow. Tea in the morning, a short walk, a nap by the window, letters you never send, books you cannot finish. People check on you. Sometimes they call you sir. They speak gently, like you might break if they speak too loudly. But you are already broken, only they can't see the cracks. You keep a trunk by your bed. Inside are the things that survived with you. The letter you never delivered. The medal you never wanted. The bayonet you didn't need after all. A torn photograph of a friend whose last words you still remember. A piece of uniform, stained and stiff. A dog tag that no longer hangs from anyone's neck. You open a trunk sometimes, not to remember, but to feel. To remind yourself that you weren't imagining it, that it was real, that it happened. And then, one evening, you fall asleep in your chair by the fire. You wake in the dark, not to a sound, not to a voice, but to a feeling, a memory. You're in the trench again. It's cold. It's night. You smell gas, but there's no mask. You hear boots in the mud, but no footsteps. You see stars, and then you hear him, the boy, the one who asked if it would hurt. Kay stands there, just outside the circle of firelight. His uniform is clean, his face is whole, and he's smiling. You try to speak, the words stay trapped in your throat. He nods, like he understands. Then he turns and walks away, into the dark. The next morning, the postman knocks on your door. No answer. He knocks again, still silence. Later, a neighbor finds you in your chair, peaceful, still, eyes closed, hands folded. The fire has gone out, but you look warm, content even. They say you passed in your sleep. They say it was gentle. They say you earned your rest. And they are right. They bury you with your old regiment's flag. Cake, they played the bugle. Someone reads a passage from a letter you once wrote, now yellow with age. A child lays a flower on your grave. The church bells ring, and then the world moves on again. Years later, no one remembers the sound of your voice. No one knows how you held your tea. No one recalls the way you winced when it thundered, or the way you stared too long at clouds. But your name is still on that monument. And sometimes, in the early morning, an old man walking past will tip his hat to the stone and whisper, "I remember." And then, that memory lives another day. Because, in the end, survival isn't about glory. It's not about medals or marshes or even being remembered. It's about having endured. About having stood through the worst the world could offer and still somehow kept walking, kept breathing, kept hoping that one day the war inside you might finally go silent. And when it does, there is peace. There are over 40 million casualties from the Great War, tens of millions dead, tens of millions wounded, millions more never found, millions more never named, millions who simply disappeared into the mud. And among them, you, a single name on a weathered stone, a single voice, now silent, a single heartbeat, long stilled, but not forgotten. In the years after the war ended, the earth itself still whispered of what happened. Farmers unearthed bones when they plowed their fields. Children played near unexploded shells. Dogs dug up old helmets, shrapnel still lodged in them, and sometimes the wind carried with it the faint scent of blood that no rain could wash away. Entire villages were erased, forests shattered, rivers ran dark, hills still cratered decades later. The war didn't just leave scars on men, it scarred the land, it scarred time, and from those scars, new wars would grow. The cemeteries came next, row upon row, crosses, crescents, stars, stone after stone, names, ranks, regiments, sometimes just soldier of the Great War, known unto God. No photograph, no date, no final words, just a place for someone to say goodbye. Even if no one was left to remember who to say it to, your grave is somewhere in France or Belgium. Or maybe your name is etched into a wall of the missing, your body never found. Doesn't matter, 'cause you are not alone. You are surrounded by silence, by company, by the only men who truly understood, their bones beside yours, their stories buried with yours. It's their ghosts still walking the fields and trenches and forests where they once lived and died. In one grave, there lies a boy who enlisted under a false name because he wasn't old enough. In another, a man who wrote poetry between battles and died clutching a pen. In another, a medic who carried dozens to safety but bled out from a wound no one saw coming. In another, a chaplain who never carried a rifle but held dying men's hands until they went cold. In another, a man who believed the war would be over by Christmas. It wasn't. He didn't live to see the next Christmas either. They are all there, beneath the same sky, under the same wind. Their stories untold, but felt, not through books, not through films, but in the silence that hangs over their resting places. The silence of lives unfulfilled, of dreams abandoned, of laughter never heard again, of love letters never sent. People visit the cemeteries now, tourists, students, historians. They walk slowly between the rows. They take photos, they place flowers, they bow their heads. They say never again, but they cannot hear the screams. They cannot smell the gas or feel the weight of mud around their knees, or know what it means to kill a man up close, to watch the life leave his eyes and still see your own reflection in them. They visit, and they leave. You remain. There is a field in Flanders where the poppies still grow, blood-red petals swaying in the breeze, soft, gentle, beautiful, and yet they bloom from soil thick with death, from ground that has absorbed so much pain it can no longer be pure. Even beauty, here, carries grief. Even flowers whisper of war. Your story is not unique. It is one of millions. That doesn't make it meaningless. It makes it eternal. Because in every soldier's silence, in every mother's tears, in every letter never sent, in every dream never fulfilled, you live on, Ativa. Not as a hero, not as a name in a history book, but as a reminder of what war really is, of who pays the price, of why silence sometimes screams louder than bombs. And as time passes, and the wars continue, and the flags rise and fall, you remain there, still, watching, waiting, silent, but not forgotten. It wasn't the war to end all wars, never was. That was a lie, told with good intentions and hopeful eyes, whispered by those who desperately wanted to believe the world had learned something, that the horror had been so great, so complete, that humanity would never allow it to happen again. But the silence of peace was short, and in that silence, another war began to grow. You see it first in newspapers, talk of borders, of treaties stretched too thin, of rising leaders with sharp eyes and tighter fists, of flags raised with too much pride and not enough memory. You hear it in speeches. The old words return words you remember too well. Honor, sacrifice, glory, destiny. They echo with the same rhythm as before, but they sound different now, louder, hungrier. And you sit by your window, tea trembling in your hands, feeling the chill creeping not from the wind outside, but from the way history repeats itself, unblinking, okay? They begin to call for soldiers again. Young men, not yet weathered, not yet broken, not yet made of scars. They wear polished boots and march in clean lines, proud to wear a uniform, proud to belong. You remember that feeling? And it terrifies you, because they don't know, because they haven't seen, because they haven't tea, yet had to stare at their own reflection in the blood pooling beneath a friend's jaw. You try to speak. You tell them war is not what they think it is. You say it as not just battles and flags, as rot and fear and loss that never fades. Some listen, most don't. They pat your hand, call you grandfather, smile politely. They think you're part of a different time, a different kind of war. They think the new war will be cleaner, more modern, more efficient. They do not understand that war never changes. Only the tools do. And when it begins, when the thunder rises again over Europe, it feels, to you, like a bad dream come true. You see the lines form, You see boys leave their homes with packed bags and tearful mothers at the station. You see the maps turn red. The names of cities you once fought in appear again on the front pages. Verdun, Ypres, the Marne, the same soil, the same rivers, the same ghosts. You are too old to fight now, but not too old to watch. And watching is worse. You feel helpless, useless, broken in a new way. Because this time, you can't protect anyone. You can only sit by your fire, staring into the flames, remembering what comes next. The bombs fall. Again, the gas returns in new forms. The bodies pile, the silence follows. But now, it's louder, deeper, heavier. 'Cause you know it will never end. The postman comes one morning. He hands you an envelope. You recognize the handwriting before you even open it. A friend's grandson, killed in France. Kiri, near the place where you once nearly died yourself. You sit there for a long time, staring at the paper, at the neat handwriting, at the clean, official words. And you remember the boy's laughter. The way he called you sir, even when you told him not to. The way he asked about your medals. The way you tried to warn him. You tried. More letters come, more names, more graves. You begin to feel as if the trench never let you go. As if, even here in your quiet home, you've been drafted again, called back. Not to fight, but to mourn, to count the losses, to carry the names, to hold the silence that the world refuses to bear. Your neighbors don't speak of the war anymore. It's too much, too big, too ugly. They focus on rations, on curfews, on keeping their children fed. And you understand, but you also feel the loneliness settle deeper, because this war is not yours. Not exactly, but it feels like it. It feels like a continuation of the same story, a sequel written in the same ink. One day, a reporter visits. He wants to talk to you. Last living veteran, he calls you. He asks questions with a tape recorder running, a pencil in hand. What was it like? What do you remember? What did it feel like? The moment you knew the war was over, you stare at him, at his clean shirt, smooth hands, his two eager eyes. And then you ask softly, which war? 'Cause to you, they've blurred. They've melted into each other. It's one long scream across time. You tell him little, not because you don't remember, but because some memories do not deserve to be spoken out loud. They deserve to remain buried. Not out of shame, but respect, because they are too big for words, too full of truth, too sacred in their suffering. He leaves with a smile and a thank you. He writes an article that calls you a witness to history, but he does not understand what you witnessed. He never will. You are old now, very old. The war has stolen nearly everyone you once loved, but you remain, and you wonder why. Not in bitterness, but in curiosity. What is it that kept you breathing all these years? What did your survival serve? What good came of all that pain? You walk with a cane now, each step slow, each breath shallow. But one day, you return to the field, the one where it all began, where you saw your first friend die, where you left your youth buried in the mud. It is green now, peaceful, it's a memorial nearby. Children on bicycles, sunlight, it's no trace of blood, and yet, you feel it, you always do. The war still breathes here, still lingers in the roots, in the wind, in the silence between the birdsong. You sit beneath the tree, close your eyes, let the wind touch your face. And for a moment, you are there again, not as a soldier, not as a survivor, but as a boy, before the war, before the uniform, before the silence, And in that moment, you feel something close to peace, not because the war is forgotten, but because you carried it long enough, because you honored it, because you remembered, so others wouldn't have to. A life doesn't need to be loud to matter. It doesn't need to be filled with speeches, medals, or grand victories to leave a mark. Some lives are carved quietly, in silence, in grief, in endurance, in simply continuing on when everything inside wants to stop. Yours was one of those lives. You didn't shape history with politics or power, but with survival, with memory, with a quiet resilience that touched more people than you'll ever know. You had no statues built in your name, no streets named after you, no parades marching in your honor, but you changed people, one by one, without trying, without knowing, despite being here. There's a child, you met him once, briefly. He was 5, maybe 6. He was the one who asked if war was like the movies. You didn't lecture him. You didn't correct him. You just looked at him, long and quiet, and shook your head. That small moment never left him. He grew up to teach history. And when he speaks of the war, his voice softens. He doesn't talk about victories or losses. He talks about people. And he always says, "There was a man who looked at me once, just looked, and I understood." There's a nurse who sat by your bedside in your final weeks. She read your letters aloud when your eyes became too weak to see. She didn't ask for stories, but she listened when you told them anyway. She didn't always understand the things you said, the names you whispered in your sleep, the trench slang that spilled out of you without warning. But she held your hand when you cried, okay? And after you passed, she requested to be assigned to a veterans hospital. She said she wanted to serve the men who had carried more than their bodies could bear because of you. There's a neighbor who rarely spoke to you. He'd pass by your window every morning. He saw you sitting there day after day, staring at the same patch of sky. He thought you were strange. But when the new war began and his own son was sent away, he remembered your silence, and suddenly he understood. When his son returned different, quiet, son Kenny didn't try to fix him. He just sat beside him, like you once did, and let the silence be enough. Your house became quiet after you were gone. The curtains stayed drawn. The floorboards stopped creaking with your slow, deliberate steps. But in your room, they found a box. Inside letters, photographs, one rusted helmet, and a folded flag. And tucked between it all, your journal. Decades of words, not poetic, not polished, just honest. Messy handwriting, stained pages. Some entries only a sentence long, but together they told a story. Your story. Your granddaughter, who had only known you as the quiet old man who smelled the tea and mothballs, read every word. It took her months. She cried, slurred, she changed. She became a writer. Not of war stories, but of people. She told small, human stories about pain and memory, and how even the most silent souls can carry generations forward. And in every interview, she said, "My grandfather never spoke much, but his silence said everything." You didn't leave behind wealth or fame, but you left behind meaning. A ripple in time that moved outward in invisible circles, changing the shape of lives you never touched directly. There are places you once stood that still remember you. A tree you planted still grows, tall and gnarled. Its branches twist like your old fingers. Children play beneath it now. A bench you sat on every Sunday still holds the shape of your weight. Strangers rest there, unaware that it once cradled a century of sorrow. The field where you fell in love still blossoms in spring, still blooms, soft and wild and full of quiet joy. You never thought of yourself as important, but importance isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just not disappearing. And maybe that's what you left behind. Proof that it's possible to keep going, even after the trench, even after the noise, even after the world stops watching. You were not extraordinary. You were not a legend, but you endured. And in that endurance, you became eternal. The war may be over. The soldiers may be gone. The flags may be folded and boxed away. But the land remembers. Beneath every meadow in France that blooms in spring, beneath every gentle hill and quiet village path, there are bones. Bones of men who screamed and bled and vanished before their names could be written down. The soil has shifted since then. The trenches have collapsed. Nature has done its best to heal, but healing does not mean forgetting. You walk through a field near Ypres. The ground is soft, too soft, uneven. Each step a dip, a rise, like walking across the scars of a burned body. From a distance, it looks like any other countryside. Lush grass, swaying trees, blue sky, but every blade of grass drinks from blood. Every root curls around spent bullets. Every breeze carries whispers that never died. You kneel down and dig with your hands, not far just below the surface. Within minutes, your fingers strike rust, casing, a shattered canteen, corroded button from a soldier's tunic. You close your hand around it. It's warm from the sun, but you know what it once was. Cold metal pressed tight to the chest of someone who never came home. You don't know his name, but the soil does. Along the old Western Front, the farmers call them iron harvests, the relics of war that still rise from the ground after every rain, every plow. Grenades, bayonets, cash shells, bones, sometimes fingers, sometimes teeth. They are careful, these farmers. They farm with maps. Maps of where battles were fought, where trenches collapsed, where men were buried and never found. To farm the land here is to tend a graveyard. There are places in Belgium and France where no one is allowed to live. Zone Rouge, they call them the red zones. The earth there is too poisoned. Too soaked in chemicals and blood and rot. Too dangerous to till or drink from or build upon. It's been a century. And still, nothing grows clean. The trees twist in strange shapes. The streams run murky. Cana, stay away. The land is alive, but never the same. It is wounded. Permanently. Even the forests remember. Walk far enough into the Argonne, and you'll see its strange mounds beneath the moss. Circular shapes in rows, outlines of shell craters, long filled with leaves and time. A place where silence is deeper than it should be, where the wind doesn't whistle, it hums, like it's carrying secrets. And it is. People say ghosts aren't real. But how else do you explain the way a field can feel like a grave without a single stone? The way an empty hillside can feel like it's watching you? How else do you explain the silence that falls when you walk alone through no man's land? No bird song, no breeze. Just memory, living, breathing, remembering. The war is not over. It just moved underground, built monuments to remember the dead. They carved names in stone, raised arches, planted gardens, lit eternal flames. And yet, underneath every monument is mud. The same sickness, the same rot. The same mud that swallowed boots and helmets and men. The same mud that stank of sweat, gunpowder, and fear. Monuments rise, but the mud remains. You stand before the Menin Gate in Ypres, a massive memorial etched with nearly 55,000 names, British and Commonwealth soldiers whose bodies were never found. You read a few, Johns, Williams, Thomases, and so many without even a rank beside their names. The wind cuts through the archway. You close your eyes, and it almost sounds like breathing, like the stones themselves are sighing. At Thiefville, the memorial to the missing of the sun towers above the fields like a ghost made of brick. It's beautiful, in a way, stately, grand. But beneath it lies a truth that beauty can't soften. Over 72,000 men never came back from that single battlefield. That number wraps around the arch. It climbs the pillars. It spills across every carved name. And when you run your fingers across the cold surface, you feel the chill of history. Not pride, not patriotism, just absence, just grief, just names without stories. There are memorials that mark where towns once starved villages completely destroyed by artillery and never rebuilt. No homes, no roads, it's just stone markers where lives used to be. These are not places you walk through casually. They are heavy. Even in silence, they hum with mourning. You tread softly, not out of superstition, but out of respect, because this is not just earth. This is hallowed ground. Some of the monuments feel empty, not because they are meaningless, but because the world has moved on too fast. Tourists walk by, chatting. Children play nearby. Selfies are taken. Guides speak in cheerful voices. And you stand still, staring at a list of names that once breathed, once laughed, once dreamed of things like dancing and coffee and falling in love. Now reduced to letters, white on gray. And you wonder, what is remembrance? Is it this, stone and a flag? Or is it the ache in your chest when you see a sunrise and think of the men who never saw another one? The mud beneath the monuments doesn't ask those questions. It knows the truth. It has never stopped holding them in. It has never stopped whispering their names at night. And if you listen closely, when the rain falls on the stone, when the wind moves just right, you can still hear them, all of them, still there, still waiting to be remembered, not just in monuments, but in hearts. The guns went silent. The flags were lowered. Peace was declared. And yet, the war didn't end. Not really. Not for the men who fought it. Not for the families who lost them. Not for the children born from the silence left behind. Because war doesn't stop when the bullets do. It lives on. In minds, in memories, in moments too small to notice, but too heavy to carry. You came home, but you weren't the same. Stood on the platform as the train pulled away, your bag in one hand, the other hand twitching like it was still gripping a rifle. They smiled when they saw you, but their smiles faded when they saw your eyes. Too quiet, too distant, too full of things they couldn't name. You wanted to say you were glad to be back, but part of you wasn't back. Part of you stayed in the mud. Part of you never left the trench. You walked down streets you used to know, but they felt smaller now, too bright, too clean. The bakery still stood. So did the barbershop. Children still ran through the square, but nothing looked right, like the world had kept going while you were stuck in place. At night, you lay in your bed and wait for sleep, but sleep comes slow. You hear the creak of a floorboard, and your body tenses. You smell smoke and your heart races. Hear a shout from the Alliand. You brace for impact. You try to tell yourself it's over, but your mind disagrees. Your body doesn't believe it. You're still there. They called it shell shock. It wasn't about shells. It was about what broke when the soul was stretched too thin, when the scream never left your throat, when the death didn't stop, even after the dying did. You weren't weak, you were changed. But the world didn't know how to see that, so they called you names: coward, unstable, lost cause. You weren't sick. You were injured, but your wound was invisible. You weren't alone. Thousands came back like you, staring at ceilings, startling at door slams, sweating in winter, drinking too much, saying too little. Some found ways to cope. Most didn't. Some drifted through jobs. Others never left their rooms. Many wore uniforms again because civilian life felt too strange, because war was brutal, but it made sense because home didn't. And the war passed on generation by generation. You didn't talk about it. You tried not to, but silence has a way of growing roots. Your children learned not to ask, but they felt it. They saw the way you flinched at fireworks. They heard the way you muttered names in your sleep. They noticed when you sat by the window for hours, staring at nothing. And, though they never knew the trenches, they inherited the weight, called it a victory. They built monuments, held parades, wrote books, but behind the celebration was a generation of haunted men. Not martyrs, not heroes, just boys who had seen too much. And for many, the real battle began when the war ended. It's the battle to live, to feel, to find joy again, to believe in anything. Some never did, but some did. Not quickly, not cleanly, but they grew gardens, wrote letters, became fathers and grandfathers, learned to cry again, learned to smile without guilt, and in that, they won. Not the war, but their life back, piece by piece, day by day. She never knew the trenches. She was born 10 years after the armistice. To her, the war was a photograph on a shelf, a folded uniform in the attic, scar on her father's hand. He never explained, but she felt it, in the way he spoke, or didn't, in the way he hugged her tightly, but always for too short a time, in the way he stared out windows during storms. She learned not to ask questions, but she kept them anyway. Why did he sleep in a chair? Why did he never go to church? Why did he wake up shouting some nights? Why did he cry when she dropped a plate? And why did he always say, "I'm sorry" afterward, like he was speaking to someone else? She grew up walking carefully around him, not because he was cruel, but because he was breakable. She loved him deeply and feared the depth of his sadness, 'cause it had no name. She watched him take long walks through fields, never speaking. She followed once, quiet as a mouse. He stopped near a tree, kneeled in the grass, took off his hat, murmured something she couldn't hear, then cried. She never told him she saw, but something in her changed. Years passed, she grew, married, had children, and she passed on a gentleness, a patience, because she knew what silence could mean. She knew that kindness was sometimes the only thing standing between someone and the weight of memory. Her son once asked her, "What was Grandpa like during the war?" She smiled. "Quiet," she said, but she told him the truth, too. That kind of war doesn't end when it ends. It lives in people, and when it lives in them, it lives in us too. She raised her children to listen, to notice, to sit in silence with someone when they had no words left. And though she never saw a trench, or wore a uniform, or held a rifle, she carried the war, like a whisper in her bones, like an echo in her bloodline. Because war doesn't just take from those who fight it, it takes from their children and their children's children. It changes the way love is given, the way grief is hidden, the way people carry each other. And in some strange way, that is its final act. The war ends, but its silence does not. It grows, it deepens, it waits for someone brave enough to hear it. Time is a thief. It doesn't steal all at once. It steals quietly, not with noise or force, but gently, softly, one name at a time, one memory, one story that slips between the cracks, and eventually, even war becomes a whisper. There was a time when people spoke your name aloud. It echoed in telegrams, in church prayers, in newspapers folded on trembling laps. It lived in the tears of your mother, in the letters your brother kept, in the silence of your father's chair at the dinner table. It was everywhere. But now it's nowhere. Your name is carved in stone, K, on a monument in a place most people will never visit. K, it's in neat letters, sharp edges, centered and clean, but no one reads it anymore. They walk past, they see the rows, the symmetry, the design, but not you. They do not see the mud in your lungs. They do not see the boots you wore for 17 months without ever fully drying. They do not feel the gas sting behind your eyes. They do not hear the screams you buried just beneath your tongue. To them, it is history, neat, distant, closed. But to you, it is still now, still here, still living in the spaces no one looks. But sometimes, a child walks past, maybe with a school group, or their grandparents, or by accident, and their eyes pause on your name, just for a moment, long enough to wonder, who were you? Were you scared? Did you have someone waiting for you at home? Did it hurt? They may not ask out loud, but something in them stirs. And for that moment, You are not forgotten. Your name lives in the wind now, in the rustle of leaves above the trench line, in the quiet between church bells, the flicker of a candle left burning on a forgotten windowsill. Not everyone hears it, but those who do carry something forward, a thread, a breath, a reason, and that is remembrance, not parades, not speeches, not uniforms pressed and clean, but a single voice, a single heart, a single whisper of your name on a breeze, still alive, still echoing, still here. It's easy to say they died for peace. It's easy to say they gave their lives for freedom. But those words are too small, too polished, too clean for what really happened, 'cause you didn't give your life. It was taken from you, violently, without ceremony, without fairness and peace. Peace didn't come easy. Not for the world, not for you, not for the thousands who never found peace inside themselves again. What it cost was everything. Not just your breath, but your youth, your laughter, your chance to grow old, to fall in love again, to raise a family, to chase dreams, to heal. You didn't just lose life. You lost possibility, a version of yourself that never had a chance to be born. And those who lived, they paid a different price, a longer one. They watched the world move on, watched as people forgot how deep the wound had been. They carried guilt, not because they did wrong, but because they survived. They paid in nightmares, in loneliness, in the silence of rooms that used to be full, in eyes that never smiled again the same way. They paid in marriages that crumbled, in jobs they couldn't keep, in friendships that faded because no one could understand. They paid in hospitals, in shadows, in broken hearts, and bent backs, and in the way they flinched when someone called their name too loudly. What it cost was everything, for everyone, and the world never paid it back. Not fully, not fairly, not ever. But you didn't ask for repayment. You didn't fight to be thanked. You fought because you were told to, because you believed in something bigger, or because you had no choice, or because you didn't want to watch your brother go alone, or because you thought you'd come home a hero. But instead, you came home hollow, or not at all, and still, somehow, you mattered. Not because of how you died, but because of how you lived in the face of death, how you endured when others would have broken, how you stayed human in a place that was designed to strip that away. You are not remembered for how many enemies you killed. You are remembered because you held someone's hand as they died, because you shared your last ration with a boy who had no one, because you sang a song quietly to yourself in the dark, because you looked at the stars and still felt something other than despair. That is what it cost, and that is what it meant. There is a trench no one speaks of. It is not dug in dirt. It is not marked on maps. It holds no barbed wire, no boots, no bullets. This trench is dug in time, in memory. It lies between the past and the present, between forgetting and remembering, between peace and silence. You are in that trench now. So are we. You see, the final trench isn't about war. It's about understanding. It's about listening. It's about honoring not the war itself, but the people inside it, the human cost. The ordinary souls placed in impossible situations. It is easy to read history books, to memorize battles, to repeat names and dates, but to feel history, to carry the weight of a single life lost in a sea of millions. That takes effort, that takes courage, that takes stillness. The final trench is where we ask ourselves, what will we do with the stories they left behind? Will we honor them? Will we learn from them? Will we remember them when the world once again grows loud? Or will we let them fade? You were gone, your voice stilled, your breath silent, your eyes closed long ago. But your story, your truth, your pain, it lives here, in us. In the spaces between heartbeats, in the quiet moments when we choose not to look away. And so, this is the end. Not of the war, not of you, but of this telling, of this long walk through mud and fire, silence and sorrow. This was never meant to entertain, attain. It was never meant to glorify. It was meant to witness, to walk beside you, to stand in the trench with you, to say, finally, with all the truth we can muster, we see you, we hear you, you are not forgotten. And if we carry that forward, if we speak your name, if we hold the silence, if we remember what it cost, then maybe, it's maybe, you've truly come home.